Man, that's a beautiful bass. Do you want to catch more bass, but you just feel overwhelmed by all the different rigs out there? Don't worry, guys. Today I'm going to show you and beginners just like you the secrets to Texas rig fishing basics and how to catch more bass. Howdy y'all, and welcome back to Aquaholic Fishing. If you're new to the channel, my name is Randy. Thanks so much for stopping by. On this channel, we talk about fish, fishing, and spending time in the great outdoors. On today's episode of Aquaholic Fishing, we're gonna talk about the Texas rig, how to rig it, what to use, what baits to use, what not to do, the biggest mistakes, and a couple of different options that will have you catching more bass straight away. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get into it. Let's start with the gear and the gear breakdown of what we're gonna use to get out there and start chasing that largemouth bass with the Texas rig. Most folks are gonna tell you to use a bait caster, but if you are brand new to the fishing industry, you're probably not very competent or confident in using the bait caster. They're gonna say use a medium heavy rod with a fast tip, get out there and start using that Texas rig. That is very true in very heavily covered area where you got a lot of structure, a lot of cover, things that you're fishing with inside the water column that are potentially gonna have you breaking off. This is the spin cast that I use. I like to use a medium or medium light with a fast action tip. Remember, if you're fishing in heavy cover or heavy structure, you're probably gonna want something a little more medium heavy power with a fast action tip. If I'm finesse fishing, I'm gonna use a Shimano Zodius 7.2 to 7.6. This just happens to be the Shimano Vanford 3000 XG. It's kind of a midpoint as far as the price range. There's plenty of others out there that are more affordable, a little easier, user-friendly on the pocketbook, like the Shimano Sedona. The Shimano Sedona is an excellent option for those of us who might be on a budget and maybe not wanting to go to a higher price point or even a moderate price point for a reel at this time. Guys, you can fish the bait caster option if you want to with the Texas rig. You can also fish it on spinning tackle. If you're in light, sparse, structure and cover areas, the spinning tackle and gear is going to work great when throwing that Texas rig. If you're dealing with a lot of lily pads, mats, things of that nature, you're going to need a rod with a little more backbone, and you're going to need a reel to be able to grind in there a real good gear ratio to rip those things out of those mats in that cover and those structure areas. When it comes to fishing the Texas rig, everybody's gonna have an opinion. That's just the way it goes with fishing or anything else out there. I personally like to use braid as my main line, fluorocarbon as a little leader material. If you wanna run straight braid, run straight braid. If you wanna run straight fluoro, run straight fluoro. If you wanna run monofilament, run monofilament. Everybody has their own opinion, and guess what? If it works, stick to what you're doing. As far as hooks go, I like the offset shank worm hooks, and I like the EWG hooks as well. They both work really good from 1/0 all the way up to 5/0. I usually use the 3 and 4/0 is a mid-range, and it works for almost every soft plastic out there. As far as weights, you may not be able to see these because they are 1/16 ounce. I use 1/16 and 1/8 ounce primarily on my Texas rigs. If you can use no weight, go no weight. If you need to use a lightweight, use it. 1/8, 1/16, 1/4. If you're gonna start punching pads and all that good stuff, you're gonna go up to an ounce or even heavier. So I like to use the offset shank worm hooks. I also like to use the EWG hook. These are both 4/0. I like to use somewhere between 3 and 4/0, but anything as far as 1 to 5/0 are great for largemouth bass, depending on what soft plastic you are using. Some of these hooks will have an extra wide gap. Some will be a wide gap. Some will have just a small gap. The hook point here across to this other side is going to be your gap. That distance in between the hook point and then the straight piece of your hook is going to be where your gap is at. Hook point here, your bend, your offset, and then the eye of the hook. As far as weights go, when we're running just a regular Texas rig, 1/16, 1/8, 3/16 are great. These here are little stoppets. So if I want my hook and my weight basically to be one piece and I don't want my weight to be coming away from my hook, I'll use the stoppet on my rig first, then I'll put on my weight, then I'll put on my hook. These little toothpicks right here are in here because they are also a stoppet. If you do not have anything else, you can use a toothpick or a small branch out there where you're fishing. You can break it off up inside of that weight and it'll keep your weight pegged as well. Texas rig fishing can be extremely easy, but as anglers, we like to really overcomplicate things when we don't have to. All right, guys, we're gonna go with that beautiful little Zoom lizard, exposed, pegged, little bitty 3/16 ounce weight. That beautiful blue tail, I think, is gonna get us bit. Get in that time? Boy, that was a weird bite there. I mean, a weird bite. He got plastic, is what he did. That's exactly what happened. He doubled up that plastic. I was gonna say, I had him a couple of different times. Sometimes when we expose too deep and we don't just barely skin hook it, that happens. And that's more than likely what took place there. Two of the most commonly used baits when you're out there fishing the Texas rig is just a stick bait or a trick worm. Both of these work really good. If you have a favorite brand or manufacturer or company, if you like Gary Yamamoto, get after it. You like Zoom, get after it. Yum, get after it. Same thing with the craws. I like the Rage Tail craw. If you want to use a craw, use a craw. If you want to use something like a lizard from Zoom, fantastic. They work really, really good. Flukes work really, really good on the Texas rig as well. You can use almost any bait out there on a Texas rig. The Texas rig is one of the most versatile rigging options that you have as an angler, and every angler out there should have it in their arsenal. That's gonna get us bit right there, I believe. We're gonna let that fall to the bottom, and we're just gonna kind of drag real slowly, real methodically, and wait for that big bite. See that little pop over there? That was a bass coming up to the top. That's where that popper could come in handy. I see a big laydown. Well, there's one that grabbed it right there as I was reeling it in. Got him. He was following me, and I was over here reeling fast, and this is a beautiful fish, guys. I mean, a big, beautiful fish. Luckily, I worked it slow right there at the edge because he come and picked that thing up, and man, that's a beautiful bass. What do you use as far as color options when it comes to Texas rig fishing? As a beginner, I would think that this very basic, natural or neutral colors. I'd go with the watermelons, the watermelon seeds, the green pumpkins, the whites. If you're working heavily stained or muddy waters, you might want to use something with a little chartreuse tail, a little bit of chartreuse, a little bit of orange, something to give the bass a little bit more of a target when they're chasing after your Texas rig, whether it's in lakes, rivers, creeks, streams, it doesn't make a difference. The Texas rig is one of the only baits out there that you can throw 24/7, 365, no matter what the conditions, no matter what the light penetration, no matter what the forecast is like. You can fish the Texas rig at all times. You can fish it up shallow, you can fish it deep. It's an extremely versatile bait. That's why so many anglers use it, and again, why you must have the Texas rigging options inside of your fishing arsenal. It's probably one of the deeper spots of the water column there. Let's just see what's down there deep, just to make sure that we're covering all the water. See if anything's interested in that lightly weighted Zoom lizard. 6-inch variety, we got one right there. Feels like a little bigger. Not a big, but a little bigger. Whoa, this guy's putting on a show over here. As far as where to fish, where am I fishing this? Heavy structure, heavy cover. Obviously, when we do that, we're gonna expose it and we're gonna keep it as a weedless bait presentation. But we can fish it anywhere in the water column. Fishing it shallow, fishing it deep, high weed lines, grassy areas, dead grass, green thriving grass, structure, cover, submerged timber. It doesn't make a difference. You can fish the Texas rig, lakes, creeks, streams, rivers, ponds. It doesn't make a difference. You can fish them anywhere. All right, guys, I'm gonna show you a couple of different retrieves here. Got a little lure that I had on earlier. It was a little Zoom lizard that was working pretty good out at a local pond. I'm simply gonna open up this little bail release lever and I'm gonna cast it out. When I cast that out, I always want my rod in position. I want it from the 9 o'clock position to the 11 o'clock position for the most part. That is extremely important. A lot of times, as soon as the lure lands into the water column, it'll get bit. Sometimes it's gonna get bit, and the majority of the time it's gonna get bit when it lands or when it's starting to fall. So you have to be ready. If you have your rod in the 12 o'clock position, you're not gonna have any type of a leverage point to go back because you're already really as far back as you can go, and you're gonna miss the hook set. Cast that out there, cast your favorite lure out there. let it drop to the bottom inside the water column. Holding your rod at the 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock position, start bouncing that lure off the bottom. Pop, 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 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock to the 11 o'clock, 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock, whatever it is, your favorite cadence, and especially what is the bass's favorite cadence as far as the rhythm that you're using. As I pop, 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 I let it start to fall again, I reel in my slack. I personally like to keep a semi-slack line because a lot of times I'm not feeling the sensitivity for the bite. I'm absolutely a line watcher and I'm always watching if that thing zigs or zags or starts to walk. I'm always looking for that, and that's usually when I'm gonna set the hook. If I have my line too tight or too taut, I have a feeling I'm gonna lose more strike options. I think it's a strike deterrent. As soon as the bass bites that lure and feels that resistance or that tension, he's gone. If I have slack or semi-slack in my line and I can watch the line walking, I can always get that hook set when the bass least expects it. Another option, casting that lure out there, letting it fall to the bottom. Same thing. We have our rod position about 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, always anticipating a strike from the largemouth bass. We're throwing that Texas rig out there. We let it fall to the bottom inside the water column. Now, if I want to cover more water, I don't have a whole lot of time. I got 1 hour for lunch, whatever the case may be. I'm going to start dragging that bait. Instead of just popping it and waiting, I'm going to drag, pop, drag, working it off the bottom, but also kind of swimming that bait in. It works really well and really effective with creature baits and things of that nature. There's a couple of basic retrieve options that you can use when fishing that Texas rig for largemouth bass. I think those two simple retrieves are incredible for beginner anglers, and you'll get more comfortable and confident and gain some competence in fishing that Texas rig, where you'll probably apply some different types of retrieve strategies. When you go to set that hook, bury the butt of the rod into your side, lean into it a little bit, and just go to town. But you do not have to rip the lips off the fish in order to get the hook set. Remember, just like any other rig that we're fishing, guys, lures, hard baits, soft baits, whatever, we're trying to cover water. We're trying to cover as much water as humanly possible in sometimes a very short amount of time. A lot of times they'll say that 10% of the water holds 90% of the fish. 20% of the water holds 80% of the fish. If that's true, you need to cover as much water as you possibly can. Lots of fan casting out there, a lot of quick retrieves, find out where you're getting those bites at, and then kind of settle in for those largemouth bass bites on that Texas rig. The key to fishing the Texas rig is patience. Slow and steady once you have found the bass. I think one of the biggest mistakes, or some of the biggest mistakes, that young anglers, beginner anglers make at the very beginning, you're using too much weight. You have your weight buried down in the sand, buried down in the rock, and you're wondering why you're breaking off. You're using too much weight. On the other hand, you're using too small of a weight. You're working in deep water. You're using where you need a better fall rate into the water column, and you're using too small of a weight, and the bass is not interested. You're using too much weight. You're using too little of a weight, or we just don't have the patience and we're fishing these rigs way too fast. Guys, I'm telling you right now, if you use these tips, you're gonna get out there, you're gonna catch more bass. I'm showing you how to rig them, how to fish them, where to fish them, the mistakes that people make. I think if you put some of these to use, you're going to be very productive when you're out there fishing the Texas rig for largemouth bass. If you like this video today, if you learned something, if you're 1% smarter, please hit that like button down below. Please leave me a comment, share, do something like that to help the channel growth. I'm trying to help you, but in turn, help me a little bit too. Thanks so much for watching Aquaholic Fishing. Appreciate you guys stopping by. If you haven't already, hit that little subscribe button down there somewhere, and we'll see you guys on the next one.